We are recording. It is day one, I would say officially, of the work year. There is no hiding behind semi-holidays like you could maybe on Thursday and Friday. Business is on. Welcome back. Artist Journal, January 6, 2025, broadcasting from the web in Alex Gray's Theolog, that spiritual web, as we were discussing yesterday. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. Bringing a radio vibe to the visual arts. How's that? How interesting is that? So I say to myself, for the first time with the camera rolling here. So welcome everyone. Look at this. Look at this. Struble Waffle. It was hard not to start with this. It seemed kind of outrageous not to start with this. So here we are. Here we go again. You know, someone was calling this stream of consciousness. I think yesterday in the comments we were seeing this being described, and my chair is having issues here. It was being described as stream of consciousness. This kind of looks like stream of consciousness, like visual, digital art stream of consciousness. And I don't know what the references are, but it kind of looks like those potato guys. I think they were toys. Like the potato heads? I have no idea if that's what they are. Let's look at the title quickly. A course on Rodeo, excerpts. So whatever that means, I have to say I'm really enjoying the obscurity of Waffles, Struble Waffles titles. 291 minted. I think Absurdity with 25. I don't blame Absurdity. I think I got 2. I don't often get 2, but I was sort of like, the bug is catching. I got 2. Interesting piece. Let's go back to the piece quickly. So what else do we see here? We see multiple layers, don't we? I mean, speaking of grid or web, you see this kind of, we do see, first of all, this kind of almost like graph paper, shall we say, but with a mask of some kind, maybe moving through it. We also see a little bit of print. Let me see if we can make this bigger. We can. It's actually quite a large file. You see, we also see like these little dots, Band-Aid dots, referring to the printing process. Here we see, it's quite interesting to do this, isn't it? Like here you see a big brush mark. Here you see digital, like some squares, kind of an animation, pulsing, so to speak. Here, a little bit of static here with the brush. And these create contrasts as well, but still even like a little bit alive over here, maybe in the overlapping. And here you see these dots that are moving across. So things are just kind of being filled up to a certain degree. See some bones in our, what I'm calling a potato head, and almost as if, who was it? Who came out of the forehead of Zeus, the most famous of Greek goddesses, came out of the forehead of Zeus. Almost like out of the forehead of Zeus here is this face with the eyes, with almost, and look at that, with the eyes, and then you even see like going from black to white with the eyes. I mean, this is pretty rad, to quote Waffles. So just more wonder, and you gotta love this person. This person looked like they were playing the saxophone in that earlier piece. We can take a very quick look. I love that saxophone piece. It's almost like a character in Waffles' works, the saxophone guy. And here's just the rest of it. Some more interesting eyes, kind of bubbling out, almost like those glasses where the eyes kind of come out, right? So pretty cool. Hopefully my chair doesn't break on this episode. Anyways, let's continue here. Rad work. 291 minted so far. 8 hours left. As the myth says here, legendary. Pretty good, pretty great work. And so just cool work from Waffles. Let me show you that saxophone work. We saw this yesterday with the AI guy. This one was a little risque for the show. But Serenade. Yeah, so there's the saxophone guy again. This was a great one. I really love the The ones with the bricks, there's also I guess that was on Object maybe, the ones with it was sent to Eiley, the stand-up comedian, which we looked at a couple episodes ago. So Waffle's doing good, continuing to gain cash, just past $1,000 there on Rodeo. So pretty cool when you're minting at 30 cents. How many do you have to do? I guess that's 3,000 you have to sell. Interesting. So thanks for the support, as ever, releasing daily here. Absurd Deity, another great episode, Adrian. Thank you. The abundance continues. Indeed it does. I was thinking to myself right before I started this, it's almost a kind of celebration of freedom. Whatever happens in the world, I mean, this is one of the takeaways from taking the time off. It's nice to speak into the world kind of freely on a subject that's super subjective, like art, so you can it's not politics where you start taking a side and half the world hates you. Maybe it's a little bit like that with art, but overall, it's not quite as, polarized and as intense. Of course, people will have different opinions and hold them passionately. But it is nice to have a place to actually just have your voice, share, put it this way, celebrate your freedom. Which I think we do with our voice, probably more than anything. So indeed, the abundance continues. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I was so pleased to see you feature the Four Seasons quadriptych of one of ones that Recollapse agreed to create for me. And I didn't realize, so thank you for letting me know, I didn't realize this was a commission. They are now in my generic vault where they will stay. I encourage you to take a look at some of the other wonderful artistic interpretations of the Four Seasons in my curation below, where you'll find commissioned quadriptychs from the artists Ader Nanotti, Mishiyasu, and Frank GL. So make sure I am following all these people. So very cool. And thank you for sharing that. And I did go, and it was really cool. For example, just seeing Mishiyasu do the Four Seasons. I thought that was awesome. Very cool curation there. Skardek, 4 days in a row. Blessing the timeline, indeed. Well, I'm glad you appreciate it, my friend. The celebration of freedom. Trippy Collector, Poco the Machine, I can't keep up. I think it was Trippy over the holidays, where I was like, enjoy the time off, Trippy, if, and of course I follow Trippy. Enjoy the time off, Trippy, because you may have more content than you need sometime soon. Tay AI, Pocobelli's Art Journal 379, color outside the lines for all to see. That's not even human, and by that I mean your hands are probably just a simulation, isn't it, Poco Cookie? I wonder if that's an AI agent. It kind of looks like that old Microsoft. Remember that? Tay AI? So I don't know if this is a AI. But it's kind of the new thing, the new meta. One of the new metas. Here's another one. Unknown Collector talking about the great debate over what Rodeo means in terms of the, minting for low costs at high volume way of approaching art. Initially, Rodeo marketed their platform by encouraging artists to, and of course I follow Unknown Collector, to mint work in progresses rather than finished pieces. Because essentially they are giving them away for free to attract users to the platform. Right, so that was exactly right. They were marketing it as a place for work in progress. Actually, I think my take is they actually started to do a platform, then it kind of got to be known as kind of a work in progress, and then they said, okay, let's adopt that. That was kind of how I read it, but I would agree, early on, it was basically, and we're talking like August, which feels like years ago. It was basically kind of work in progresses rather than finished pieces as a justification for the low prices and a justification why should artists go over there. Now their narrative has shifted. They're positioning themselves as an art marketplace, promoting claims of 1,000x resales and emphasizing the quality of the pieces. And it's hard to disagree with that, too. It feels like all about creating a marketing narrative and gaining traction, whatever fits at the time, which doesn't come across as genuine to me. It feels totally forced. Remember the hen spirit comparison. Well, this is how I would frame it. It's out of the crypto world, is I think kind of like the self-evident truth is how I would put it here. It's out of the crypto world, and what does crypto need? Crypto needs transactions. They need activity. They need people to use the platform. So, in a sense, whatever the market wants them to be, they're probably going to adjust like a chameleon too. Adapt, so to speak. So they might not have been expecting quite the situation that they got. Like they probably thought, okay, let's have a secondary. Maybe this will juice things up and kind of create some more energy. Because it was doing okay, but it wasn't really doing spectacular from my perspective. Like now we're kind of, I'd say, at full, peak hype. Maybe we're just getting started, as far as like the excitement for this platform. But right now it's like there's a lot going on. But as we kind of have learned over the years, really here, the attention span of the crypto space and the NFT space and the digital art space, but especially the crypto space, is fleeting. It is a commodity. It's like entropy. It's like a commodity that as soon as you have it, it's like, don't think you're going to keep it. And, we saw, look at Zora was doing spectacular, I'd say, like 8 months ago when they had the free mint that was $3. And who's talking about Zora now? Nothing against Zora, right? But just to speak objectively here, I don't see it on my timeline very often. And maybe other people have different timelines, but you see what I'm saying? Like, so things can change. So yeah. So in a sense, let's continue. Like, my sort of take on the whole rodeo thing is, well, let's see, maybe like if it really takes, it's going to still be running in 3 to 6 months and be bigger than ever and be huge. Or at least be keeping this at the very minimum, this kind of intensity, which is not going to be easy, I would argue. So for me, it's kind of a wait and see. Let's see. And personally, as an artist, I don't feel, again, if the crowd is going over there, nothing wrong with it. And maybe I should be going as an artist, but for me, it's sort of like, I like Bitcoin right now. Nobody's paying attention to Bitcoin. I was having this conversation yesterday with someone, and it's sort of like super rare. Nobody's paying attention to super rare, to generalize. This is kind of where I kind of want to hang out in terms of as an artist. Let's continue. It feels like all about creative market narrative. Exactly. Personally, I'm not a fan of the increasing commodification, commercialization, and gamification of art. Yeah, like the crypto scene has been, as I said last episode yesterday, it's been desperate to somehow memify digital art, right? And turn it into this kind of marketplace of transactions. It's been desperate for this. And I think the underlying motivation at the end of the day is exactly what I was saying a few minutes ago, which is to get transactions on your blockchain, because the more transactions you have, basically the more investment you're going to get. And this is considered as good news because people are using the blockchain. Right? And so the blockchain is going to be helping you along, and you're going to become, and maybe to a good end. Like let's see. It seems that in the end, the focus is primarily on generating profits for the platform's creators and builders. I mean, that seems the end goal here. Put it this way, artists have always been tentative about this platform, even those who have adopted it. Right? I mean, like a lot of people are using it. You will see Sabato here. Used it early, still using it, but very tentative and is sort of like with a lot of reservations. And I would say understandably. This Spotify thing is real. Like if you're in music, go talk to your musician friends. Like it's not like some trivial thing that doesn't matter. As an artist, as a collector, well, we're having the time of our lives as collectors, right? It's fantastic, 30 cents, I get 5 or 10x. I just paid for all my art today. This is the best. I read Sonny's argument about fractionalization, but it doesn't resonate with me. And I didn't see this article or this tweet, but it is kind of like a form of fractionalization that's going on here, where all of a sudden you get 3 in any edition, you could argue, and in a sense, but let's continue. While thoughtful collecting could make this concept work, we know that most people don't operate this way. Serious collectors could use Rodeo meaningfully, but for the majority, it will likely boil down to random clicking and hoping to find the 1000x resale opportunities. And I think this is exactly what is happening here. Like we saw the volume yesterday. Remember Luke 500 posted it? And we see like it's quite jumping and like already in January, by January 4th, we had as many transactions as November, right? And I even tested it out today. I bought 2 of RJ's first, and then there was like these 5X things, and I was like, and then one was supposed to be available, but it didn't work, and I was like, just to get the experience. And so I suspect there are people, many people, like where the crypto space goes, there are going to be a certain amount of people who are going to be coming in to just say, oh, this is an easy way to make 5 or 10x, right? And that's it. Like, and then when that opportunity disappears or relents, or when it gets not as profitable, likely will leave, or at least let it go. However, on the other hand, to be fair, art collectors are, as someone put it, I don't know if I have that tweet here, I might, but there is kind of an art collecting bug that is likely to infect a large amount of people who may come here for the gains and then all of a sudden realize that they're art collectors. This is, any art collector out there will probably understand what I mean. If you've collected art, especially digital art or any kind, you can kind of go in unassumingly and then all of a sudden it literally feels like you've been bit, and all of a sudden you're just kind of obsessed. So that's kind of like a positive here. From an art perspective. And we're even seeing kind of reports of like, oh, I feel like my Tezos secondary has picked up as a kind of, is described as a post rodeo bounce. Are people, it's quite likely that people are getting new collectors if all of a sudden 200 or 150 different people are collecting your work. That's a lot of different people to collect your work. And at a 10%, let's say 1 out of 10, maybe you've attracted 15 are serious collectors, let's call them, or collectors interested to find out what else you have. Maybe 7 of those people already have collected your work or already know about your work, but 8 new collectors is pretty good, actually, right? So it's kind of interesting. Let's continue. It feels like art itself is becoming less and less important. Yeah, like it does feel like it's a means to an end, to a certain degree. Again, it feels very crypto. And that's my reservation as far as this breaking through, because I suspect, and I imagine, they want to break out to the consumer, but to like beyond crypto. But I'm not sure this kind of crypto paradigm of 5x, 10x, 100x, I'm not sure that the general public is going to be all over that. Like you could get a bit of a TikTok thing happening it's all, I'm not so sure about that. I think there's a lot of skepticism still out there for our little situation out here and for crypto. But perhaps that's, maybe I'm overstating that. It feels like art itself is becoming less and less important. Okay, we read that. Art absolutely needs a secondary market, but it also requires holders, believers, and lovers who value the work for what it truly is. That said, I still wish the best to Rodeo. We are still a very young market and experiments are welcome, but I also feel we need a critical view on things. Yeah, so I think really what this to me illustrates is there's a lot of tentativeness as to, especially as many of the artists move over to Rodeo, and not just at the expense of the other platforms, maybe temporarily. It's not like they're leaving the other platforms, but as you see all these artists there, and I thought to myself, even it's like, oh, this is almost kind of conveniently unifying as someone who kind of looks for the art. It's like, oh, here's all the art on one platform, right? Because you do get Ethereum and Tezos artists tend to, like, there's a lot of them are on that platform. And so it's kind of, especially ETH feels kind of fragmented. There's still not, for me, a great way of tracking artists on ETH. Interesting. And just a couple of comments here. Rosacho, we should also see it from the artist's point of view. Some artists like me can't even remember the last time we sold a 1 of 1 on ETH for a normal price, maybe early 2023 or something. I've sold a few pieces on Tezos here and there, but most of the collectors have been the same person. Then there's Rodeo. Initially, I uploaded work in progresses, quick 5-minute works there, but I started putting a bit more effort into my last 5 pieces. Hundreds of people collected from me, not a lot of money, but it feels good knowing so many people still want my work, even if it's just for pennies. Some collectors picked up 10 to 50 editions per piece, which feels like a win-win to me. That said, nobody is forcing anyone to do anything. Some artists are even less fortunate than I am, and maybe even a fraction of the ETH they earn means a lot to them. Nobody really knows. As you said, the market is still maturing, and there's a lot to experiment with. Discussions like this are necessary. So there was a lot of, and I'll read a couple of more here quickly, a lot of thoughtful comments here. The beauty is that we're maturing quickly, where collectors with different philosophies can coexist. Nobody has forced anyone. Rodeo is an option, up to everyone to make the decision whether to mint collect. I'm getting serious deja vu from 2 years ago when the talk on the timeline was about Tezos art being cheap. Look how that's flipped. Well, and this is a worrying trend, isn't it? Because Tezos art is looking expensive compared to Rodeo art, right? And we're kind of back to this spottification argument. Like, is it getting lower and lower and lower? And at some point, after this is all said and done, where is this leading us? Look how that's flipped. I'm fairly certain that that's how art on base will age. So saying that art on base will age well, I think is what it's being said here, like Tezos art. Because of the art, not because it's cheap. And the art at the end of the day will have its say. I do agree with that. We have to be absolute in our conviction of freedom too. If an artist I love has decided to exercise that freedom, what reason do I have not to support it? The editions are consolidating. Thoughtful collectors are making the rounds on secondary for 5 to 10x. Wait a bit for those editions will be locked with hodlers. Discover and cross-pollination is underrated. I've discovered so many amazing artists then gone and acquired their works on chains. I mean, from a purely pragmatic point of view, it's not a terrible decision to be on Rodeo right now as an artist, with everybody, with all the attention there. And you're trying to expand your audience. I mean, it's quite pragmatic. And that may be what we're seeing at the end of the day, right? It's like, it's quite, from a purely, business decision short term, you can say even long term, you could argue. It's not a terrible decision to be there right now. Rodeo only works for artists when there's volume, like I said before. And this is probably going to be the key. Will they be able to maintain volume 6 months from now? That is kind of like the thing. And if they can, isn't that interesting? But when people start to not make money, what is going to happen to the volume? That is the question. Like I said before, there will be multiple paths to success. Some will run through curators and galleries, some through millions of screens worldwide. Many platforms have gone belly up or bankrupt. Rodeo is the best normie onboarding platform I've experienced yet. It does a brilliant job of turning art lovers into art collectors. Maybe we'll see them add to their collection from Tez and Mainnet once they've been bitten by the art bug. Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for that. Yeah, that was the quote that I was thinking of, the art bug, getting bitten by the art bug. Yeah, so I thought that was a great comment there. So interesting. Unknown Collector followed this up with saying, a little side note, I respect every artist making their own decisions. I wish everyone the best of luck no matter where. Artists succeeding is all I want. I would never stop supporting artists who experimented and try new things. But for me, Tezos and Object is greater, I think you'd say, than the rest. I care about the details and the care they put into everything, how they try to push digital art forward with quality curations and partnerships. The hard work every day from people involved that's not solely about the most and the fastest. You feel the love of art. They don't just change the narrative how it fits best. Instagram style art selling is not my thing personally. Doesn't mean there isn't a market fit for it. And I think, my take is it's extremely early. Someone brought up shape. I think NFT Woman was saying, something like, is Rodeo the new shape? Is the Cabal now promoting the Rodeo over shape? Yeah, Rick Austenbrook, who is actually quite a good artist, pretty 61,000, I think that did work for Apple, if I'm not mistaken. Has sold quite a bit, I think, on Super Rare, if I'm not mistaken. I love the discussion about Rodeo.club. About Rodeo, it's good to post without a filter on not having to overthink what I post while it's still stored somewhere on the blockchain. Using it as a personal visual diary with daily, less serious, spontaneous experimental pieces. And here's some examples. So just kind of noodling around. A place for sketches, really. I mean, that's kind of how I thought of Tezos when I started there. It's sort of like when Ethereum was kind of the main thing in town. I was sort of like, and Tezos is somewhere you can kind of... I had shows where I discussed this. Where Tezos is something where you put like, sketches, ideas, and so you see almost like this gradual evolution that's going on here. We can discuss what we like, of course. Me collecting a piece that's for 30 cents has less emotional value than collecting a piece on Super Rare or Foundation at half an ETH. There is no comparison there. But it's not about that. I believe it's good for artists to just let go of that feeling that they constantly need to protect their value or care about floor prices, or if their next mint is even equally as good as the previous one. And we were kind of touching on this. One of the benefits of Rodeo, we have to say, is, we talk about how price is a bug, how you can't put the pricing, but maybe it's a feature. As I said a couple of shows ago, it does remove the whole anxiety around what if this doesn't perform as well. You just leave it to the market. As many people mint as are around who like your work, end of story. It's all the same price. It removes the pricing anxiety. Just make sure that as an artist, you have an idea what you upload there. Don't upload work that is equal to your work on the mainnet. Since the collectors will simply pick up your 30 cents thing, unless you don't care about the money, and 30 cents is fine to you, of course. Yeah, so kind of saying, don't put your best work on there. Keep it on for mainnet to keep the value. Interesting point. As a collector, I wouldn't consider it fine art, but more collecting posters or stamps from artists you follow. That's an interesting question. I mean, we saw the Waffles work. Waffles, again, like crossing boundaries and creating questions here that are not easily solved. Little timestamps of their creative journey. The doom scrolling and simply clicking randomly to collect art, almost like 888 in its 2021 glory, isn't the way you should use it. However, according to Rick Ustenbrook, however, with every click you give a tiny kudo to a creator. No, it didn't make them rich, but they will still feel your support. And there is a rush as an artist, even if the sale is low, especially if you're new. And especially if you're trying to get your work out there. Like if you're a new artist to the scene or you're thinking about entry, like it's not a terrible place to start putting out work to get collectors and just get your work out there. There's a lot of attention on the platform. Tag it appropriately and, so your work will be out there. So far, I'm having fun. While I felt a reason to stop at some point because of this discussion, I actually think that if the price tag on the homepage would be in US dollars or remove this entire feature from your profile, it could potentially even attract a whole new wave of creatives that aren't into crypto and that don't have wallets and make it easy to use Creative Mass Sketchbook. Totally agree. This is a trend we're going to see. I'm actually convinced that things are going to move towards USD. And I assume because especially if you want mainstream adoption, because a lot of people are going to look at ETH and they're not going to know the price of ETH, and it's just going to look like a foreign country. ETH, like, what is this? I don't know. I'm done. You don't have much of an opportunity. This is likely going to happen. So interesting post from Rick Ostenbrook. RJ, who has just changed his profile picture there. 2 cents. It's hard to sell art. And hard to know which ways are the best ways to move in a constantly evolving and often contradictory developing economy. And you have to say, isn't it wonderful here in the digital art space how we're constantly, having this testing of the marketplace. Okay, what happens? We do this, we do this. Is trad art? It's like, oh, okay, what was it? I don't know if it's Christie's or Sotheby's. Is it going to go bankrupt this year? That's the question, right? Here it's like, oh, in 6 months we have a new platform. Now it's blown up. Is it going to stick? Let's continue. But if you take the opportunities present here as a means to grow and change your practice, then I think you're winning. So in other words, RJ is saying, adapt, work with what you got, and maybe it'll even improve your art, Kyle Flemmer, thanks Pocobelli for sharing my microprocessor experiments. Big plans for little screens this year. Here's a new video showing how it runs after making some optimizations this week. So this is super cool. Check this out. So we saw Kyle's screen before. And remember, I think I was talking about how there's a little bit of border because it's using like a screen. Yeah, I love it. Nice solution here, Kyle. Nice solution, if that's in fact what happened. Fill the space a bit. It's almost like, remember we were talking about the signature as playing a component in the composition? Very interesting discussion that never ever gets discussed. I'd argue that's kind of like KF25. That kind of looks like a signature of sorts. There's the title, and all of a sudden that space is starting to look pretty fine, isn't it? Very, very interesting and cool, Kyle. Thank you for sharing that. Hegel Art Collector, look at this. Kind of look like they got a physical Uxine. Let's see if we can make this large. Look at how beautiful this print is. So I think we saw this over Christmas. This work in December come out. So here's a physical. So all just pretty nice. I assume Uxine sent this to Hegel Art Collector, big prominent collector on Tezos. Very cool. And here it is. Doesn't that look spectacular? It's right to the edge too. It looks fabulous, doesn't it? So nice physical from Uxine there. Very cool. I'm pretty sure I follow Hegel Art Collector there. Let me make sure. You know, again, it's a bug on X, and I hesitate to do this because all of a sudden it'll say I've unfollowed them because, you know, many of you have experienced this bug. Ripcash. So I heard from Ripcash, actually, and sent me a couple of tweets on block printing with 3D printers. So we were looking at these works, and I wasn't sure how they're made. I was like, I think it's screen print, but not exactly sure. Here it is. And you see, on block printing with 3D printers. From the interview, the great thing about consumer-grade 3D printers is that despite their precision, they do have their limits. The printable area is quite small, so you're forced to work modularly, and they actually produce a lot of flaws if you're not careful. So I really want to leverage these inaccuracies in the digital to physical transcription process. Setting things like nozzle size, printer bed, and filament temperatures, as well as model fill percentages, added to the imperfections and defects. And so the tiles were like retro printing blocks made from PLA filament. Once I had the grid of titles laid out, I applied acrylic paint by hand and pressed the canvas over top and rolled a PVC pipe back and forth with the weight of my foot. The results were messy and gave a human-like quality to the final printing that I wouldn't have been able to achieve without that mechanical intermediary step. The physical painting took on a whole different set of details and qualities. It's interesting because any documentation or photographs inevitably compress that detail, and then it gets compressed again during the upload process to whatever forum to be shared and lost in the timeline. So really, Ripcash really thinking out here the situation of what happens when you travel between mediums here. We were commenting on that, I think 2 episodes ago, or maybe it was last episode, Cimabue, right? And we see the different photographs of the painting, right? And in a sense, that's kind of another way of thinking along similar lines here. This is pretty funny too. Bought a 28-gallon lawn roller in the middle of December. Needed it for the studio. A sales guy asked me if I was for what it was for, reminding me it was December. I said art. Left him with more questions than answers. It weighs about 250 pounds. You wonder if he tried this out. This is December 12th. You wonder if he tried this out and it didn't work, or maybe that is the steel pipe that he's referring to. Pretty hilarious. And so that was the work. And here is the close-up. So you almost see here, very interesting. Let me see. I think that's and there as well. And you almost see like a decalcomania. You see that? Almost like that effect of putting, glue on paper or paint on paper and then lifting it up, right? You see that there. So very interesting as ever. And you see how it's not like perfectly square pixels. It's bleeding. Very interesting. Chemtrails or art, exactly. So very cool. And here's another work by Ochihai Shohei, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm trying to make this bigger. There we go. So just another keychain here. I don't even know. I guess it's a motorbike. Looks like a bike. So Happy New Year from Ochihai. Happy New Year, Ochihai. And here, big things coming. So we see Sabato in the studio here, in the Deluxe Paint studio. So very cool there. I think he said he uses an Amiga, 1200 computer on a PC laptop. Very cool. Continuing on, RJ, super excited for the week ahead. So more beautiful landscape work by RJ, who is kind of, I think many people, myself included, were kind of like tinkering at this. Okay, how do we make AI? How do we use AI as a compositional tool? but still make it new and maybe even still make it digital. RJ has basically, I think, has come, is winning the race right now for all of us trying to figure this race out. Trying to figure this out, and it's doing very, very well. So cool green border here. Nice work from RJ, another really cool piece. So I guess that'll be minted this week, perhaps. Nov 1914. This is interesting. So think of what Rick Ostenbroek, if I'm pronouncing that right, was saying about, okay, maybe we think of Rodeo as a place where you put your, sketches, things you're not as concerned about. So this is interesting. Experiments. So here's Nov 1914. So some cool works here. Kind of looks like a flowers, right? We'll take another look here. Different variations on what looks like the same flowers. Here, a different effect, right? Okay, interesting. And how many are being minted? Okay, 9. So pretty low mints. I mean, getting a couple of bucks here so far. 8 hours left, though. Okay. But maybe a way as a collector, it's like, oh, low edition. But see this? You see over here? Kind of looks like flowers, doesn't it? So to Rick's point, it's like the same composition. You can see the thing on the left here. So maybe this is, the way to do it, because with digital, we can make a billion variations here. We can take layers and all of a sudden they look all right. Maybe, and then, these are different. Oh, maybe I should have tried it this way. And will these be lost forever? I can still put them on the blockchain, put it on base, right? Interesting. And I'll put this one on object. And then when I have my super masterpiece, maybe I put it on Ethereum. And when I have my pixel art piece, I put it on Bitcoin. I've always advocated multi-chain here. So I'll just say, and is that it too? This is a repetition too. So even within the image, we see that kind of flowers, algunos. So very interesting work here as ever, challenging work from Nov 1914, one of one, still available for 16 Tezos. Here is Rinifish. So again, kind of looking like a fragment almost, one of the parts of a work, but made into its own work here, becoming its own composition, right? To RJ's point, try different things, and all of a sudden you're making different kinds of work, right? And all of a sudden it's like, okay, maybe Rinifish doesn't want to put a super complicated kind of oil painting type work, so to speak, on Rodeo, so just do one of the characters, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Lorna Mills, talking to Lorna Mills, we discovered, I asked her, I was in one of our spaces, it's like, because now her thing is kind of like, oftentimes you'll see one image with the mask. And I asked her, has it always been that way? It's like, no, that was something she just did for Tezos, so to speak. And then all of a sudden it became a thing, and it kind of became its own thing. Interestingly, before it was about like this juxtaposition of all of these several different, GIF kind of internet things all at once. And it still is. She still does that from what I understand. But it's interesting how it just how that can go. There are no rules here in art making. And it's kind of like entrepreneurship. It's sort of like what you think is going to work is probably not what's going to work, but something else might appear. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is even better, right? So that's just the nature. That's how it goes, Beautiful work, 200 mints, pretty good, from Fris Gamma. Very nice piece here, as you see. Let's do this, like very, very nice piece here from Fris Gamma. 200 mints on, so what is that? 200 times 30 cents. Is that $60? Is that $60? So, it really is. Put it this way. Part of the dream, as we're discussing with Xcopy and Mutatio or Mutato, the fly, part of the dream of the digital art space is, I would argue, and of digital art, is that you have a global audience of millions of people. And if all of a sudden you're able to sell for 30 cents each, or even 10 cents each, you could argue, to a million people, well, you've just made $100,000. Right? So, so an open mind is, worth keeping here. Headball. Fris Gamma, more just Interesting poetic work that feels very like it would not be hard to put this in some sort of gallery or museum in Berlin, and it would look like totally like it belongs there. So an hour left on that, and here's another one. Were these all minted like yesterday? I wonder. Because then all of a sudden, Fris Gamma is making pretty good money all of a sudden. You know, here $40, here another $30, right? Like if, in a sense, a platform like Rodeo is beautiful for someone like Fris Gamma, because they put out a lot of work, they put out a lot of variations, very prolific, and all of a sudden, you know, so it's interesting. Nice work there. Horizon 25, this is a first rodeo by Volatile Moods. And so here, let's just open this. And so just it kind of looks like a landscape a little bit. Interesting digital effect. And here's Element Lee on Instagram. Signifier and Signified. So kind of interesting. You know what I think's going on here? And it's just an interpretation. Element Lee, of course, great experimental pixel artist. I believe works on the phone, which I have a special place in my heart for as someone that does work on the phone. You know what's interesting about this? This, for example, kind of looks like a square bracket that you'd get in a keyboard. But then, or here an apostrophe, right? Or here a quote, a colon. But then they start to break down into image, right? Here it's a line, there it's a Z. It almost looks like ASCII, right? Which uses like text. And then here you got like an X, but is it an image? So it seems to me this title is basically, you know, saying like, are these words or is this image? And it's ambiguous, actually, oftentimes. Here you start to feel like, okay, that's an apostrophe. Here, okay, looks like square brackets, but all of a sudden they're put on their head. All of a sudden this making a drawing out of it, right? So simultaneously, you know, word and image. EBBoy Arts, and this was a pretty cool one. Kind of looks like an arcade or some sort of simulator of a certain kind. And there's the front, like a truck. Maybe, yeah, I'm not even sure what that is. It's kind of like a semi-truck. Let's see if there's another. And then here, Polygon. I don't know if they have work on Polygon. So EBBoy, interesting artist. And here is EBBoy also kind of looking like they're doing a turkey that is simultaneously a building. Maybe some Japanese or Korean writing there, not sure. Some more interesting work from pioneers of pixel art. The EBBoy, I believe it's two people out of Germany, but not necessarily based in Germany anymore. Flamen.gif, first in, so whatever, so it's number one in pixel art. There, you know, and then so 241 minutes here. So again, times 30 cents is what, $80? Pretty respectable, right? So again, it's a matter of will it sustain? Will it grow? I mean, one has to ask these questions. Allegory of Nature, 186, right? So pretty cool. And 186, again, we're talking $50, probably comparable, I assume, to what would happen on Tezos. The problem, in a sense, and I think this will work itself out over time. The problem is for Tezos right now, an object is the attention is on Rodeo, so there's even less volume, I think, on object right now. Because there's so much excitement on Rodeo. I suspect this is all temporarily and it'll even out again. But yeah, like in a sense, you see how there's a limited audience here. There's a limited amount of artists. And so, yeah. Anyway, we'll just keep watching it and see what happens. Hiti Rocket with some beautiful work on Tezos. And has, you know, pretty much exclusively minted on Tezos. And so cool work here. Warning, 420 editions, 23 will probably burn at some point. There's Hegel Art Collector. And so just cool, kind of part of this new series that Hiti Rocket's working on. Here's another one, Cybernet. This one I think was burned. And let's see, kind of looks like a recycling box or bin. And let's keep going. Here's Katarina Create and Beer Bro. Edition of 1, and this was sent to Mother Louisiane. Cool drawing here. Nice black and white. I love beer, and maybe it's Katarina Create here. Kind of looks like Katarina Create, and making a drawing. Beautiful black and white here. Very nice. Made for a Secret Santa event, encouraging among my friends. Edition of 1. This is pretty cool. Maybe I saw this on the homepage of Object Identity Crisis. 2 days to go. This is an auction. 50 Tezos right now. And so kind of a double head here, but single body. Kind of cool, like sci-fi looking work. I thought original illustration here. Kind of sci-fi Identity Crisis. Pretty cool. 50 Tezos from Yakim, I think, who bid on that. And the artist is Yakim, and Mr. K bid on it. Here's Banana versus the Myth. So almost video game myth here. This is also on Rodeo, and there is the myth in the middle. Or actually, the myth is on the right, with the myth mask in the middle. Maybe the game is the myth. I'm enjoying the humor here. Keeping it interesting. 131 mints. The myth always wins. Pretty cool work from the myth. Here's Arty on Rodeo. So I believe this is AI as well. And we will just zoom in a little bit. As you see, they're not perfect pixels. You know, another solution to this, maybe it's more interesting this way. Another solution to this is you could actually replace this with pixels. That would be kind of laborious, though, I have to say. Maybe it's better this way. But interesting. Or you could just export. But then you'd lose all this kind of light pink brushwork that you see here. So anyways, cool work from Arty Hands. Walk, here's a very nice work, digital work by Walk. Nice, looks like a goldfish, doesn't it? Using the trademark Walk kind of noise, diffuse style. Sabato on Rodeo, and 36 minted. This was 2 days ago. And cool kind of glitch artwork here. Kind of looks like a landscape. And what does it say here? Infinity Nikki game photography in JPEG format data bending. Cool work. And here's Absurdity. This was on Instagram. I thought this was great. You know what I loved about this work? This is using the unmodified image with a circuit bent camera. What I loved about this was how it was a combination. It didn't completely lose the original photo. And it almost, from a distance, if you kind of squint, you see the original photo, but then you look close and then you start seeing the glitch. So it's kind of like a subtle glitch, and I kind of like that. Because it's kind of tricky combining photography and digital, I would say, like digital mark making. It's always been a very hard contrast, which sometimes can work spectacularly, but it's tricky. Anyway, I thought this was a nice use, or a nice expression or example, really, of using some glitch in with kind of photography and keeping the original. I guess you could see some of these as similar in nature. This is 8so, just a couple of stills here on Instagram. Love the colors, very painterly colors here. And here's Ex-Mortal Skybreaker. I'm not sure if we've ever seen this before. This is an older one. A lot of love for Ex-Mortal here. Skybreaker, so nice piece here. I'm not sure if it's minted yet or not. And here is No Hygiene with a work on Tezos, 29 Tezos. And, you know, another thing that should be kept in mind is there are going to be collectors who are going to be happy that you're minting on Tezos right now, if you have in the past. And, you know, it's kind of a way to build credibility to a certain degree with the Tezos crowd who are still on, you know, there. And maybe, because some collectors are going to be only on their blockchain. Again, so, you know, I'm always for the artist beyond anything else. So, as an artist, so the solution to me is multi-chain to all of these things. A nice piece, kind of poetic AI artwork. Another challenging work here from No Hygiene. 17 Tezos. Outrageous work here of a piece of meat and some random images inside of it. Wild work. 17 Tezos on Object. As we go into the physicals here, here is Bondo Bandido. All Dogs Go to Heaven. Again, working so much and then just coming across beautiful works like this, like original paintings. How did this do? 1,900 likes. That's awesome. This artist is doing really well. I wonder how many followers Bondo deserves a lot. I bet it has 22,000 and growing fast, I suspect. Ken A, 3 other paintings in Let Them Lead the Way. So playing with these milk carton kind of milk boxes. Is this what you'd call them? A spider web there. Interesting. Very interesting artist. Ken A. It's Not Gallery. Lily Bunny. Interesting use of this kind of printing technique here. Interesting. Almost looks like a JPEG that's been kind of rasterized. But who knows? Bobici, Mattia, the employees. This is a new one. So look at this McDonald's apron, seemingly. Just continuing to keep it super interesting and wild. Adam Lister Studio, the Scream. So, of course, we recognize the Scream done in Adam Lister's trademark style. And that is your show, my friends. I hope you enjoy it. We have a great space on Wednesday. But I'll hopefully be back here tomorrow. But we have a great space on Wednesday with, let me actually quickly show you, for those that are here, with Noah Pred, who is Metamedia. And Noah Pred, they have very cool, interesting blockchain art tools. So if I do a show, I will mention that tomorrow. Thanks for enjoying the show, and until next time, take care. I think we have no music this time.